Dwi wedi gorffen y cwrs Cymraeg. So, last month I was talking about finishing Welsh by the end of the year. I actually finished it on the 25th of July. Well, that's not strictly true. I finished all the lessons and then started on the practice part, which is actually 16 sections, and I'm not going to rush with those. How come I managed this? Well, I could never have done it without having a Duolingo subscription, because I make a ton of mistakes in Welsh. But let's start at the beginning of my review of learning Welsh on Duolingo. I started learning Welsh in December 2021, a time when paths did not exist and leafy trees were the order of the day. For the first months, Welsh went well. I felt like I was getting it. And then Duolingo updated the course and my learning was thrown into disarray. Things had been added to lessons I'd already done, and sections were reordered. I got really confused. But I persevered and was just about on an even keel again. It took a long time, when it all changed again. Let's have paths instead of trees, and let's take away all those resources you had before to help you and leave you with nothing. No forums to look things up on. No grammar notes to help you. Only repeats of some of the sentences in the exercises. At the time, I thought it would just be a little while before we got the notes back. Nope. Still nothing. This is quite ridiculous for Welsh, because the grammar is so different from English and from any of the Romance languages I've learnt. Without the notes, it's really difficult to understand what's going on. Luckily, Duomi saved all the notes, which you can look up, but they don't exactly match the path as it is now, although they're close. And it would be much easier if the notes were just there in the app. There were, even before the change to paths, languages that were given much greater priority. Now, I feel the difference is even more stark, and I honestly don't know whether I would even have tried Welsh without having the notes to begin with. Okay, what about the content of the course? Obviously, this has changed a number of times since I started, so some things I say may not be as true as they were when I experienced them, but I'm going to say them anyway. For a long time in this course, although I was learning a lot of verb conjugations and other constructions, I felt I wasn't learning much in the way of vocabulary. It was very limited, barely enough to have a conversation, if you were brave enough for that. The path format did not help with this, because you can no longer jump around. What I did with Italian, which also had a ton of exercises on verb constructions close together, was I would deliberately do a vocab-heavy section between the grammar-heavy sections to break things up. With Welsh, I couldn't do that for a large part of the journey, and as I said in my last video, it just got too much. My brain couldn't cope with it, and I had to take a break at the beginning of this year. Now, it so happens that where I stopped was where all the really complex grammar structures stopped. And guess what? This was where the vocabulary started. And it's why I finished the course so quickly after restarting. It was largely just vocabulary. And for the most part, fairly useful vocabulary. I'm glad I eventually got vocabulary, but I wish it had been more interspersed throughout the course. Although, the fashion section, honestly, Why do I need to be able to say that I'm walking on a catwalk? Extra clothes vocabulary would have been more useful. Also, there was a section on Welsh culture. This may actually have been before the vocab section. I get it. They want to promote Welsh culture, which is fine, but without any explanation, the words mean nothing. Perhaps add some explanatory sentences into the lessons, as there are no notes, so that it's meaningful. Another thing that isn't great is the whole some of this is North and some of this is South Wales vocabulary. With the old notes, this was frequently made clear which was which. Now, there's nothing. It's highly likely that the words I've chosen to use are a mixture of North and South, because trying to look this up for everything would be quite a task. And yet, this could be easily solved by doing something like putting an N or S in brackets in the little word tips you get when hovering over something. Yes, you need to be able to recognise both, but you should probably be focusing on one or the other when learning and giving your answers in those as you're going forward. One thing I'm impressed with on the Welsh course, though, is the lessons on prior topics that are interspersed through the vocabulary section. As far as I can see, this is also in the revision section. In stark difference to the Italian to French and the Italian to Spanish, these really jump all over the place, testing everything. And the basic sentences themselves are much more varied. Yes, there is the inevitable repetition of some of the same sentences. However, these often change the verb form to a different person. But there are also a ton of what seem to be, but probably aren't, one-off sentences that combine several things. Another thing that lightens the Welsh course, although at times makes you groan in despair, is the running thread of Owen and his parsnips, and to a lesser extent, our old friend the dragon doing weird things. These sentences are ridiculous, as are many on the courses in Duolingo, which I believe are meant to make you think more, because they are silly. However, having a thread of, well, it's not really a story, because if Owen really did live like this, you'd be seriously worried about him. But it kind of has a sense to it, and finding his next crazy parsnip adventure, or having a dragon attending a meeting, can't help but bring a smile to your face. So, in conclusion, because I've been talking for too long, Welsh is difficult, and the way Duolingo has formatted the course now, they've nonsensically made it more difficult. However, it has the makings of being good again, if they just add back the notes, even the old ones. As they say, better done than perfect. And if they mixed up the lessons a bit more so that you got a break between the difficult topics with some vocab to let your brain have time to process it, that would be great.